Now, corn muffins, number one, are delicious. Number two, super easy to make. And there's one thing you can do to really sort of elevate them to the next level, and it is extremely simple, and that's by adding actual corn pieces to it. Now, you're not gonna add raw corn to it. You're gonna wanna cook it, and there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can fire roast it out on the grill, or like today, we're gonna oven roast some corn after we season it. So let's get our seasoning ready. We're starting with a 1/4 cup of olive oil. Next up, a teaspoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of smoked paprika, a 1/4 teaspoon of granulated garlic, 1/2 teaspoon of a coarsely ground black pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder. I'm using an ancho chili powder, but really just use your favorite chili powder. Get this mixed together into a nice paste. All right, let's get our corn out here. So I've got 3 sort of corn on the cob things here. We're just gonna get the seasoning on them, rub it all around them, and what you should be doing right now is preheating your oven to 400 degrees. Get everybody a good coating here. Now let's get this on our baking rack. And I have a wire rack in my baking tray here because I want to keep these up off of the tray. Now, if you don't have a rack that'll go in your tray, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. I just like to do it this way. About halfway through the cooking process, I'm going to be turning these. And this usually takes 25 to 30 minutes at that 400 degree temperature. So at about 15 minutes, I'll be rotating the corn cobs. But the reason I also like the rack is it helps keep them in a stable position so that when I turn them, they don't just keep rolling. All right, let's go ahead and get these in the oven. All right, our corn is just out of the oven, 30 minutes. That's usually when I do corn in the oven, it's right about that time. And one really easy way to check is you just take a knife and just kind of feel, are those kernels soft? And they are. And as I always say, every oven is different. Yours may take a little less time or a little more time, but this is also just a really easy way to make, corn on the cob without having to boil it or microwave it. If you want to get more of that sort of oven sensation on something, a little bit more close to the grill, where you can put some good seasoning on it and then put it in the oven, really tastes good. Now I'm going to let this cool for 30 minutes here because we're going to be handling these. We're going to be taking the kernels off the cob, and we're going to do it right in this tray. So I just want everything cool before we do that. And then we're going to let that cool down even a little more while we get the batter for our corn muffins ready. So our corn has cooled down here, and I took the rack out and just sort of wiped the tray down to get some of the excess oil out of there. And we're just going to take our corn cobs here. And if you're going to be shaving the corn off of the cob here, just be careful. I have a cut glove underneath my nitrile glove. Just helps protect your hand. We're just gonna shave it down. Very simple. And this corn right now is pretty cooled down, but it's gonna cool a little bit more before we add it to our batter, which we'll be making in just a minute. You really wanna get in here and break up these larger sections. They come apart pretty easily. So I'm going to transfer these to a dish, just let those continue to cool down a little more, and we're going to move on to making our batter. So for our batter, we're going to do the dry ingredients first, then we're going to mix the wet ingredients, then we're going to combine them, we're going to mix that, then we'll add the corn. And our dry ingredients start with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. To this I'm going to add 2 cups of a yellow cornmeal, 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar, a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, and 2 tablespoons of baking powder. And we're going to mix this together just so that yellow cornmeal is not so stark in color. We want everything to be sort of a pale yellow here. That'll kind of tell you that it's blended. Now remember, unless your recipe calls for it, mix your dry ingredients together first. Some recipes may call for you to not do that, but I think it works well. And that's pretty well mixed. You can see that color is a really, really pale yellow. Now let's mix our wet ingredients. First up is a stick of melted salted butter. And that's why we didn't add much salt into the dry ingredients, because this is a salted butter. Now this has been melted and cooled down a bit, meaning it's just been sitting off the heat for about 5 minutes. It's still melted, but it's not hot. Next up, 2 cups of whole milk, 4 eggs that have been beaten, and 4 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And we want to mix these all together here. Now we have our dry ingredients back here, and we just want to create a little bit of a well in the center here and pour our wet ingredients. And we're going to get down in here and mix. It's going to be a little bit like cement, and you just got to keep mixing it slowly until everything's incorporated. Make sure you scrape the sides of the bowl and just keep mixing. If at the end it seems too thick, you can add a tiny bit of milk. If it seems too thin, you can add a little bit of flour. Don't want to see any dry spots of that flour and cornmeal in here. Want to see everything incorporated, and we don't need to beat it like we would, say, with a mixer. We're just turning, folding, scraping the sides, scraping the bottom, getting all those dry spots taken care of here. You can see some of those dry spots, so that's why you got to get down there and turn. Turn your bowl. Keep going until we don't see any more dry spots, and when you scrape it and pull up from the bottom and the sides, none of that flour or cornmeal appears dry. I think we're almost there. That looks good. Let's go ahead and add our corn. Same thing, we want to mix this in gently. We're not beating it. We're folding and turning. Folding and turning. You want to get that corn distributed throughout the batter, and that's looking good. All right, let's go ahead and fill our muffin pans. So I have my muffin pan here, and I've got 2 of these standing by because this recipe can make, a couple dozen muffins. I just want to take some butter and lightly get into these spaces here. Just getting a little on the bottoms, the sides. There's a lot of butter in the muffins, but we just want to add a little bit extra here. And as we fill these, we're going to go not to the top, maybe almost 3/4 of the way, because these will rise a bit, and use any spoon that you feel comfortable using, because you might get some on the edges. We can wipe that up later, but I'm just using this little sort of ladle here. Just want to get it down in there. Maybe just a tiny bit more in that one. Whoop. See, we already made a mess. Just keep filling. Do not worry about the mess. And that one is overfilled, so we're going to take some out, scoop it into the next one. Perfection is nice, but it isn't always possible. I like to enjoy the process, not have too much stress while I'm doing it. So if I make a mistake, try and correct it. And at this point, your oven should be preheating to 400 degrees. Let's clean this up a little bit here. All right, I'm going to get my other muffin pan filled, and these are going to go in the oven at 450 degrees for probably about 15 minutes, but you want to watch them. They should be golden brown, and it's kind of like cornbread. You kind of know when they're done. You could stick a toothpick in, see if it's coming out clean without batter. And when these are done, I'll get them back out here, let them cool for just a little bit, and then we'll have a taste. Well, here are our roasted corn muffins. They rose nicely. You can tell some of them probably had a little more batter than, say, this one. Again, as I say, I'm not worried about perfect. I'm worried about it tasting good and enjoying the process. And these look fantastic. There are 12 muffins here. I have 8 in the other pan, so we got 20 total muffins out of that mixture. And if you wanted to right now, if you wanted to put some like butter on top of these or some honey, a nice warm muffin, just get a little spatula, lift them out. Look at that nice brown bottom on that. That turned out really nice. But I'm gonna let these cool for probably 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna have a taste because I don't wanna add anything to these because there's all that nice butter and corn flavor in there. All right, our muffins have been cooling down for a little bit. I plated a few of them up here, and we're gonna cut into one and have a taste. Now I wanna remind you, these are more of the savory version. If you want these sweeter, you can add like 4 or 6 tablespoons of sugar as opposed to the 2 we just added here. But I'll show you how you can get sweetness even in these savory ones. Something like I said, you can add honey to it. But first, let's have a taste. Let's break open here and just see how we did. Oh, look at that. That is so nice. Steam's still coming out after about 10 minutes. I'm gonna go in and get a taste without adding anything yet because I really wanna see how that corn flavor came through. That is so good, especially with those actual whole kernels of corn in there. That's the flavor I wanted. I wanted to take cornbread and bring more corn to it. And I think we did that here. And I've got some winter white honey that I'm just gonna spread on this other half to get a little sweetness. Still nice and warm, so this is gonna be good. Here we go. That's a really nice way to bring sweetness to these corn muffins because they're not inherently oversweet like some cornbread is. People make it like that. I've made it like that too. And this is essentially cornbread in a muffin shape, but by leaving the sweetness to be added later, it's just perfect to me.